like books.
Books are great.
Let's
Guess
go
we'll read some books.
Nope, not ready. We gotta go back.
We're not ready?
Nope.
Oh, we're not ready. Oh, no. Welcome back to We Read Anger. Anger. So what is our response to unfairness and justice? Is it sadness? Is it gladness?
And I'm the preschool teacher. What about us? Because as we have seen, we bear the image of God. Each of us has on some level a concern for righteousness, fairness, and justice. Whenever we encounter that which we believe to be unrighteous, unkind, or unjust, we experience anger. I believe that in God's design, this anger is to motivate us to take positive, loving action to seek to set the wrong right. And where there has been a relationship, to restore the relationship with the wrongdoer. Ooh, that's important enough for a highlight. Must be very important. Anger is not designed to stimulate us to do destructive things that the people who may have wronged us, nor does it give us license to say or do destructive things to our neighbor. Anger's fundamental purpose is to motivate us to positive, loving action that will leave things better than we found them. I think, well, you know what? It's already italicized. It doesn't need to be highlighted.
Okay. But first, let us examine this whole area of social reform. Most readers will be familiar with the organization MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Do you have any idea why this organization was established?
Because you're tired, that's why it was established. I suggest to you that it was born out of anger. Mothers watched their sons and daughters being killed in the streets by drunken drivers. When these drivers came to trial, they were given a slap on the wrist, perhaps given a small fine, and returned to streets the next day. The mother said, "This is not right." The founder, Candy Lightner, was shocked when the drunken driver plowed his vehicle into her 13-year-old daughter, leaving little Carrie dead. Later, her shock and grief turned into intense anger when a California judge gave the repeat offender drunk driver a light sentence. She and other outraged mothers soon formed MAD. It was this anger, this righteous anger, provoked by the injustice that they observed, that motivated Mrs. Lightner and other outraged mothers to establish do you want to read the stats, or Angry Birds? Angry Brit Birds?
Angry
British
Brits.
birds.
Angry birds. 53% of birds have been the victim of bullying in the nest. 71% suffer nest rage from frustrating worm searches. More than 80% have been involved in skyway rage incidents. And over half have stormed out of the telephone wire due to bad service and frustration. You like birds on a wire?
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, establish a national organization. I need
That
to
later grew to more than 400 chapitres.
Initially, their approach was to take turns sitting in the courtroom while those who were charged with driving under the influence were being tried. They looked into the eyes of the judge, the lawyers, and the drunken drivers. Their presence moved judges to think twice before returning the license of a drunken driver. They also pressured state legislators to enact tougher laws against drunk driving. I don't think I have to tell you that the penalties for driving under the influence have become more stringent over the last few years. And more driver's licenses have been removed from those driving under the influence than ever before. All because some mothers got angry. MAD continues to seek judicial and legislative reforms.
Seriously, drunk driving is a social faux pas now. Like, you do it once and it destroys you. It destroys your social life. It destroys your ability to be a productive member of the society. I'm gonna say the pendulum is almost swung in the other direction by now. It's gotten so bad that it destroys the person. It destroys their whole life, and there's no chance of reform. Anyway.
Let's talk about being sad.
It is interesting that he completely accredits that entire social change to that one organization.
They're important. The whole idea is that anger can't be functional. And that's just the comparison he's making here. But
I'm not trying to defend drunk drivers. Please, no, I'm not. I'm just saying that's interesting how far it's gone and that they are solely responsible for those changes.
I get what you're saying. He's just trying to drive the point home that anger can be productive and anger can be constructive. The organization Students Against Driving Drunk formed in a similar manner. Students were upset about the harm caused by drunken student drivers. They began to say it is not right to allow a fellow student to drive while under the influence of alcohol. These students began to organize and committed themselves to have a designated sober driver who would volunteer to drive the intoxicated person who won't turn to the page. Students home.
They took a positive, loving action in response to the Lewis Black.
This is not right. Nobody's talking.
This is not right. How can we read if we don't read?
We can't read if we read and we don't.
Read. We're not reading because it's the viewer's turn. Yay.
Are we gonna do that? The fake interactivity where we say, okay, now you read. Good. Read faster. What is wrong with you?
A little bouncing ball on the words, like at the sing-along songs. The abolition of slavery in England and America came about because a significant number of people felt anger about social conditions. The story of William Wilberforce, a great man of faith, a wealthy member of Parliament. Have the little ball bouncing.
It had to bounce pretty quickly. I don't know. Would that be a good way to teach language skills? No.
Wilberforce. I like that name. William Wilberforce.
He's a pretty cool man. I'm sure you've seen Amazing Grace.
Such a forceful Wilbur.
Yeah.
A great man of faith, wealthy member of Parliament, and social reformer is familiar to many. 200 years ago, 1807, doesn't date this book or anything.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson persuaded the British government to go to bed because he's tired to pass a bill against the slave trade. But for decades previously, Wilberforce had waged a tireless crusade, delivering passionate speeches in Parliament detailing and decrying the evils of the slave trade. Across the ocean in the United States, a number of men and women looked at enslavement and said within their own hearts, "This is not right." Years later, the evil was ended when President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Like all things Lincoln did, he signed it while sleepwalking and later had no memory of the event.
And he took selfies. You've seen the internet. They're full of pictures of him with a phone in his hand. Yeah.
But one of Lincoln's most famous quotes is that it's impossible to verify the authenticity of quotes on the internet.
But it took people stirred by anger at evil and injustice, people like Harriet Beecher Stowe, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, to prick the conscience of a nation. Anger is like a red flashing beer, beer, beer on a car's dash and indicates that something needs attention.
Yeah, anger is like your check engine light.
And it makes all those annoying noises. This is in keeping with God's desire as stated through the prophet Isaiah. I have chosen to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke, to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter. When you see the naked, to clothe him and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. But how does this work in everyday life? You can return to Brooke.
Let's return to Brooke, whom we met in the last chapter. She is Lewis Black.
With her spouse. Or with
preschool children
excuse me.
Because of what she considers to be their inappropriate behavior. Mad at her husband because he doesn't give her adequate help at home. Mad at herself because she made the choice to be at home with her children, and ultimately mad at God because in her mind, he allowed her to get into this mess. At the moment, we are not concerned with what specific actions Brooke should take. We're simply asking the question, what's the purpose of Brooke's anger? I suggest... Excuse me.
Then we go to bed.
Yeah, well, it's... I suggest that it is to motivate her to take positive, loving action, to deal with what she considers to be unkind, inequitable, unfair, and inhumane. She is not to ignore her anger. Anger is like a red light flashing on the dash of a car. It indicates that something needs attention. You can ignore that dashboard light, but it's probably not going to end up good in the long run. Or you could say, oh, great, something's wrong with the car. I'm going to throw the whole car away. The entire car is worthless. Just explode, And that's not a good response either. No.
No, that would be pretty epic if the car, if you just rolled it off a cliff with a TNT in it. But
just because one light came on the dash. But that's how most people handle anger. They either totally ignore it or totally just let it run their life. Neither one of those are a healthy response to anger.
It's kind of like pain, and that's just annoying so that you know something is wrong. If you didn't have pain, then you would not know that something within your body is wrong.
Right, but you can't just let it completely debilitate you to the point where you can't even function. Anger can be a powerful and positive motivator, useful to move us towards loving action, to right wrongs and correct injustice. But it can also become a raging, uncontrolled force. So the difficulty is that all of these wonderfully positive purposes of anger seem to elude us in the heat of anger. We forget about setting things right.
And end up yawning?
And end up making things worse. This brings us to the next pressing question. How can we process Lewis Black in a positive way, Karen?
Because Lewis Black can be processed so negatively. I can think of a few things, but I think we need to turn the page. Thank you. No?
Next time on We Read.
Okay, I guess.
Chapter 3, When You're Angry for a Good Reason. Come back next time.
I like books!
Books are great.
Let's
Guess
go
we'll read some books.